I have to ask you a question. Are you heading to Palma? Are you going to Ibiza or Magaluf this summer on an all-inclusive trip? Well, listen up, because Owen Curry of Air and Travel Magazine is here to tell you why it might not be as full on as you think. Owen is on the line. Hiya, Owen. How are you?
Good morning to you, Jennifer.
Great to have you back on. So what's the story with this all you can drink rules in Spain? Tell us.
Well, it's not exactly all you can drink anymore. It's pretty much 6 will do, just 6 will do. 3 drinks at lunchtime, 3 drinks at dinner. After that, you have to pay for it. It's not something that the resorts have brought in. It's something that the government of the Balearics and in the other touristy regions across Spain have decided. They want to bring a little bit of a heel to the amount of alcohol that their tourists are drinking.
Okay, and Owen, it's not mainland Spain, right? It's Balearic Islands, it's certain places, right?
It's local government, and it's largely the Balearics. And it was introduced a couple of years ago, but it is really only impacting now because travel was so seriously curtailed. And of course, it got a bit of wind in particularly English media over the weekend. The reality is that it's part of a wider package of measures, Jen. They want to bring an end to the pub crawl, where you go and you get a drink in each pub, proceed through the town. They want to bring an end to the incentives that the beer companies are introducing for tourists. A lot of the focus in some of the towns that listeners would be familiar with, Magaluf would be a good example, Santa Ponsa less so, but it's a big Irish resort in Mallorca, has been on alcohol tourism, and Spain is basically saying we're unhappy with this. They say it's a disorder issue. I'm not sure it's as big an issue as they say, but once something like that turns up at local government level, a lot of local residents get behind it because they instance the discomfort to their lives that are brought by tourists. It's a thin-edged sword because tourism is such big business in the Balearic Islands.
So you can have more in these all-inclusive resorts, but you just have to pay. But that might be a deterrent for these people who go specifically to get, locked, let's just say. Has there been much evidence? Has there been much evidence of the rule being enforced already?
No, it's basically, it was brought in for this. It didn't create much of a stir.
Okay.
What tends to happen with these things, it ends up on social media, a lot of outrage expressed. If bruising up is the only focus of your holiday, it is a big deal. But I've noticed, Jen, around the world, less emphasis on the sort of the alcoholic as a promotion, as an incentive to get people there. The cruise lines will often give you your drink free, but they will tell you that if you want a premium drink, you'll have to pay for it. In other words, you get very basic brands. Listeners may have been to Dominican Republic, which is very heavily dependent on all-inclusive. The beer and the wine that comes free tends to be the lowest quality, and a lot of the guests pay a little bit more. So we've seen almost the tourism industry getting over that teenage thing where everybody tries to get as drunk as quickly as possible, to being a bit more discerning, and it's showing up in government policy. As I say, it may not be as big a problem as the people advocating this are making it out, but when politicians get on their high horse about excessive drinking late at night in a town like Magaluf, there's enough stuff showing up on YouTube to get people to agree with it.
Oh, absolutely. Jeez, I've seen those videos. I think I'm in one. What about things like happy hours or, these organised pub crawls? Are we going to see an end to them in these places?
It's very interesting. It's not as easy to do the rules that ban pub crawls. But certainly things like drink promotions, happy hours, all of those, they're much easier to police. We saw it coming during COVID. Even during COVID, there was one magnificent YouTube video of a group of English tourists just dancing on cars down the streets of Magaluf. It created shock horror. But with the happy hour, the whole concept of the pub crawl, the happy hour, it tends to go for a certain demographic, Jen.
Yeah.
And when younger people go on holidays, they want to be on holidays. They want to leave their cares behind. They don't want to have people checking the amount of alcohol in their drink and whether they've had a fourth drink, but they should only have 3. So it's, as I say, it's dangerous territory to go into, because if young tourists, and they do tend to travel with places that are fashionable, the places that show up on Instagram, the places they've seen their friends sending messages back. If a place that has made a great reputation as a tourist destination for young people, Benidorm would be an example, loses it, it's very hard to get it back. They tend to go to somewhere else. So I would say there's a lot of publicity, a lot of sort of outrage being expressed about, oh my God, my all-inclusive holiday doesn't include a seventh drink. I suspect that the whole outrage about that will die down, and if someone does want a seventh drink, as long as they're not parading it on social media, the big deal would be made and no big deal would be made about it, because, as I say, it's not the resorts that are deciding this, it's the local government, and it's not to do with price or economics or anything like that, it's to do with disorder.
Disorder. Do you think it'll work?
We've seen, even sending out a message reducing disorder, there are certain parts of Europe which have a reputation for being very rowdy and very boisterous, that have seem to have cleaned up their act or got less so. It's something that attaches itself. And listeners would remember periodically the Temple Bar, when there was a lot of local people saying this is not the sort of tourism we want. The reality is you can't really shut out a reputation for good crack and a reputation for people having alcohol. You can't actually separate the two. Prague did a lot of work to rid itself of a reputation about 20 years ago. Tallinn got something of a similar reputation. And as I say, Benidorm just seems to go on forever and ever. It doesn't seem to matter what sort of reputation Benidorm gets. They still go there in numbers. Yeah,
I mean, Magaluf has a certain reputation, doesn't it? I mean, we don't know it as Magaluf. We know it as something else.
Okay, Jan.
I'm not going to say it.
My first trip to Magaluf was with Club 18 to 30 holiday. Obviously, people who know me would reckon that's a long time ago, but it was a fantastic place.
It is. I know. Look, I think it's a good thing. I think, if we can curb it, do what we can to curb it. But I wonder what the locals think of this. Are they worried that it'll put tourists off their destination? Would they be happy, to clean the place up a little bit?
Very interesting that you can actually go 3 kilometres out of Magaluf into nature parks cycling. You've got these amazing trails which are very, very close. So you can actually combine the two. If you're a guy or a girl who can handle a hangover, you can actually do the full-on nature holiday during the day and the drinking by night. And it also fascinates me that there's also a beautiful nature park in Benidorm, but most of the people who go there don't go near. Very, very often, the place that has a reputation for being a party, boisterous location has a somewhere beautiful right beside it. Ayia Napa in Cyprus is somewhere absolutely gorgeous right beside it. So you can actually combine the two, or even just do a night or two, 1 or 2 nights of one, and retreat into the other. The other thing is that the boisterous tourists and the more staid tourists tend not to stay in the same end of town. There's a very clear dividing line in Ayia Napa between the boisterous and the more family-oriented. There's a very clear dividing line in Benidorm as well. And the two can coexist peacefully. But occasionally, this is what's happening here. There is a little bit of local politicians and local residents getting on their high horse and saying, my sleep has been disturbed. The places where the sleep are disturbed don't tend to have many people sleeping in them, because that's the way the town and the demographic of the town has developed.
Do you not think doing just having better enforcement and stricter repercussions to that fella who goes swimming in the fountain at 2 a.m. in the morning, like if you threw him in a cell, would that be more of a deterrent for people acting the maggot?
Yeah, the jumping into fountains that's a particular tourist activity.
I suppose it's like a badge of honour if you go on one of these holidays with the lads or with the girls and you get arrested. It's almost like, we said what we wanted to do.
Okay.
But look, go on.
Some of my best mates have been in that fountain at 3 o'clock in the morning. The reality is, that enforcement tends to be very heavy-handed anyway. You know, the Irish police are generally on the side of the civilian population. They don't tend to, you know, you really have to push them a bit, or to act a maggot a bit with them before they react. Whereas continental police can be very heavy-handed, move in very quickly, but and get the backs up of the people that they are trying to calm down, rather than do a sort of collaborative thing. So I don't think enforcement is the issue. The real issue is that local government want the tourist people, the people who are running the pubs, running the tours, and running the all-inclusive resort,
to take control,
to back off the booze, take control, take responsibility for them. And in fact, enforcement could be much more. It's much more effective if the pub owner is the one who finds himself in trouble than a couple of drunken louts that are out from Manchester for the weekend.
Good point. Eoin Curry of Air and Travel magazine, thank you so much.